Do you struggle to know what to do with your hands, and despite bringing your diagram, you really can't tell the difference between the labia and inner thigh? Hi, I'm Patrick, and pleasuring women is not that important, but knowing how to place your hands for the bench press is important. Now, you see, I've benched over 600 pounds multiple times in competition.
Opening with 272 kilograms, that's 260.
Look at that giant son of a... Oh my God. Dude, that looks like a commercial bench pad.
He's a baby too. Look at him wobble back and forth. He's 20, I believe he's 22 years old. Woo! Wow.
You know what?
And I'm here to fix where you place your hands. So by the time you're done watching this video, you'll have a greater sense as to where to put your hands for the bench press. Where to place your hands on the bar for the bench press is a little more nuanced than just, hey, here's how you do it, and this is the way that works, and it's 100% going to be this way all the time. Because it's not. Everyone's a little different, and different hand placements emphasize different muscle groups in the bench press. Some people are very tricep dominant when it comes to bench pressing, and their hand placement is going to be very different from someone who is pectoral dominant in the bench press. And it's up to you to figure out which version of hand placement on the bench press is best for you. But I will give you the guidelines and things to consider about where you're placing your hands in order to get the best version of your bench press. But before we get into where to place your hands on the bar, let's talk a little bit about the different characteristics of a barbell. So we've got a barbell right here. This is a power bar because it has this center knurl in it. Now, power bars are used in the 100% tested federations where you're not allowed to have actual fun. So these power bars have this center knurl in order to place it on your back for squats because they use the same bar for all three lifts. Not all federations do that. Next thing to notice is on the further side, you've got these rings. These rings are important because they're going to base where you place your hands. We're not going to be using the inside smooth part because honestly, that's too narrow for most people. This ring has multiple purposes. The first purpose of this ring is to standardize the rule set for where you can place your hands. Because if you look at the hub of the bar and this ring, there's a set distance between them at all times. No matter what bar you have, there are some bars with multiple sets of rings, and this ring is always going to be the inner ring. So this ring sets the maximum width that you can place your hand. So if you have your hand placed outside, that's not a legal bench press in competition. But as long as there's some part of your hand in contact with this ring, be it the index finger or any of the fingers, you can go narrower if you want, but I mean, you're going to be getting too tricep heavy doing that. But your maximum grip distance can be index finger on this ring. The second usage for this ring is where we standardize our grip. So if you notice, we're going to set our grip based on which finger on our hand is going on this ring. We can go inside the ring, but it's not really that productive. But if you really do want to go inside that ring, I would base it off of either a pinky length away and setting your grip like that, or a thumb grip length away, a thumb's length away, and then standardize like that. And it's very similar distance. That's how I competed in my very first powerlifting competition for my bench grip. But since then, I've learned more about how to place your hand, your grip for a better bench press. So the pinky on the ring is very tricep dominant. This is as narrow as you should go. Any narrower is going to get even more tricep involvement, but it's going to isolate your pecs from the movement. You can put your ring finger on it, you can put your middle finger on it, you can put your index finger on it. The index finger on the ring is as wide as you can legally go. As we explained before, the rule set says you can't go any wider than that. So the distance that the finger that you put on the ring is very important because the closer your grip is, if you ever have done the close grip bench press, you know that it's a very tricep specific movement. You're trying to isolate the triceps and get a really big pump in your triceps. So the further in grip you go, so like pinky on the ring, is very tricep dominant. And that's going to isolate the pecs from it. But if you go wider out, it's more pectoral dominant. So if you have a wider grip, your pecs will be more involved and your triceps will be a bit isolated from the movement. So which finger you decide to put on the ring is really personal dependent. Because if you're a tricep dominant bencher, you're going to want to take a thinner grip, a closer grip. But if you're pectoral dominant, you want a wider grip. There's also the things to consider, such as range of motion. A lot of female athletes and a lot of smaller athletes take the wider grip because it also reduces the range of motion. And if you see super arched lifters, they'll take the widest grip possible because they want the smallest range of motion possible. That's one thing to consider, and it's why there's a lot of dispute as to what kind of bench press is actually a kind of bench press, because that kind of method has spurred rule sets on bench depth where your elbow has to go past 90 degrees, and that's only legal. That's only a rule in one federation as of now. Another thing to consider when you're choosing your bench grip is how it's going to affect the rest of your shoulder girdle. This entire ball and socket joint in your shoulders, how it's going to affect those. If you have rotator cuff injuries, stressors, if you have elbow issues, if you have things like that, you've got to consider those when you're picking your bench grip. So it's more than just what kind of muscle fibers do you have, where you could have more of the fast or slow twitch in your triceps than you do in your pecs. The distribution is a little different. The length of your arms is very dependent on where you want to take your bench grip, because a lot of people with shorter arms will take a thinner bench grip. But also, you also want to take things not like that into consideration. One of the biggest things a lot of people complain about is rotator cuff and shoulder kind of stress going on in their bench press. And that's from taking a wide grip. A wider grip will isolate the triceps a little more, and you will end up getting a little bit of elbow flare a little earlier in your bench press, and that puts a lot of stress on your rotator cuff and your shoulders. And what I mean by elbow flare is notice how the elbows kind of go in line with the bar. It also brings your touch position up more closer to your nipples than where you want it, in the middle of your chest at the top ab. So you get a little more elbow flare, which can cause shoulder and rotator cuff issues. Conversely, if you take a thinner grip, you're going to be better at tucking your elbows and not getting that elbow flare. You'll have a little more maneuverability with your bar placement, but notice how there wasn't as much elbow flare going on there. The negative of taking a thinner grip is it's more stress on your elbows. So, kind of summary of that quick little demonstration. Wider grip, more elbow flare, rotator cuff and shoulder stress increased. Also, pectoral stress increased, but a lot of people don't really deal with that until they have well-developed pecs and they start to get a risk of pec tears. Conversely, oh, that's my thumb. Conversely, a thinner grip, a closer grip, has more stress on the elbow. So it's almost like a pick your poison kind of thing, where both of them have their negatives, but both of them have their positives. And it's really up to you to decide, based on the information that I've given you, as to what kind of grip that you're going to take. So if you want a little bit of a too long, didn't read, the closer grip you take, the more tricep dominant your bench is going to be. The wider grip, the more pectoral dominant you're going to be. And it's really up to you to decide which pros and cons you want to deal with, because the wider grip has more stressors on the rotator cuffs and shoulders, while the thinner grip has more stress on the elbows. But that being said, you don't have to completely go on either side of the spectrum. We all know about being on the spectrum, don't we? Don't we, boys? So this is as thin as you can go, pinky on the ring. This is as wide as you can go, index finger on the ring. What I personally take is ring finger on the ring with both my hands. This allows me to utilize my very strong triceps and my short arms. I'm a very tricep dense individual where the muscle density is very, very dense in my triceps. And I also have a risk of pec injury. So I've had to take my grip in. I used to do middle finger on the ring, but I tore my pec doing 635 in comp. I still locked it out though. It was gross. It like crinkled all the way down, crinkled all the way up. Would not suggest. Very painful. Not a full pec tear, but it still took a couple months to recover from. So these are the things that you need to consider when you're choosing your bench grip. And I can't in good faith tell you, hey, this is exactly where you need to place your bench grip, because each individual has their own variables to play with. So if you think you are a tricep dominant, take a thinner grip. If you think you're more pectoral dominant, take a wider grip. If you feel like those extremes are not optimal for you, play around with the grip width a little bit, because chances are you're not within that extreme tricep completely dominant or pectoral completely dominant. Chances are you're some sort of hybrid like me, where I put my ring finger on it. You might take a little more pectoral dominant and do your middle finger. So play around with your grip width and consider the things that I discussed today. And hopefully, well, not hopefully, you will hit a bench PR, because you'll be more consistent and you'll approach your bench press a little more confidently, because you know what you're doing and you're better able to buy into the bench press in the manner that you need to hit bigger and bigger numbers. This has been Patrick. Tell your mom I said hi. She kind of misses me. And I hope you guys continue to follow along with my personal journey to benching over 650, and as well as becoming the greatest powerlifter, whatever, like, comment, subscribe. I'm done stroking my own ego.